Hello and welcome to the agenda on Politics Social with me and Phil Morehouse from A Different Bias. How you doing there, Phil? You all right?
I am much better than you, yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm still very
Yes.
much under the weather. Big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Stephanie in there and Johan and Pete. Ivan's in there as well and One Angry Pagan. I'm sure he'll appreciate your badger of calm in front of Parliament.
My badger of calm.
Khan. What? As in the Wrath of Khan. Sean Streeter, hello. We've also
Khan.
got Chris. We've got Anthony Fisher and Vendetta. Hi, everyone. If you want to join the chat, just hit subscribe, wait a minute, and then you'll be able to add your voice to the chorus. And new people are always welcome, but no trolling. Okay, so Phil, first thing I want to talk about is about press reform. I did a thing about this on the Morning Brew. I wanted to ask, is there anything in the Labour manifesto about press reform or beefing up the independent press complaints thing?
Not a thing. Also, I mean, from my point of view, I'd like, media reform is one of my three big things for this Parliament. It's also the hardest to achieve for various reasons. I would actually favour... The thing with press reform is at the moment there's no real press regulation, and what little rules there are for the press, they self-regulate, which is obviously not fit for purpose when you're talking about one of the most dishonest professions in history. But there is some regulation for broadcast media, but it's not being properly enforced. So I would actually think low-hanging fruit is to make sure, like for me, if I was to go at media reform, I would go at it in three stages. The first stage would be properly enforcing broadcast regulations, then making sure that there were that we had a sort of Leveson 2. You don't have to call it that, an up to date, because Leveson wasn't properly implemented in the first place, but it would now be out of date. It would be time for another review. Particularly considering things like social media and the fact that a lot of newspapers are increasingly getting their views on the internet as well. It's moving away from the physical content to online content.
The Daily Mail website is the most read news site in the world.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. But I mean, that, to take account of that, you would need another, even if we'd have had Leveson properly implemented, you would still need another review now just to update. So you want a completely different review. Judge-led, obviously you have these things judge-led. It would be vaguely hilarious if they had as part of a wider commission, Harry. Oh, Harry, would you like to get involved in this? And Hugh Grant, maybe, if he's up for it, but he might be busy. And... but that would be my second stage, press reform, and making sure there was a proper independent regulator. But you do it first with broadcast, because you need to find out, because we have an independent regulator for broadcast, Ofcom. It's just toothless, and it's not pursuing its own rules where it does have teeth. So we need to get that right.
In the chat is saying Starmer's banging on about lowering bills. Why isn't he giving Ofgem, Ofwat, etc. teeth and telling them to go after them?
Well, he is.
Yeah.
Well, Ofwat at least. That is in the manifesto.
Yeah.
So they will be. One of the things, and as I say, when we say go after them, remember, like, what Labour are proposing is that you make the individual people, not the faceless corporation, the individual people making the decisions for that faceless corporation, personally responsible, as in the consequences for them, criminal consequences, as well as hitting their budget, their bonuses.
Well, that was one of the things that came out in the documentary last night. It wasn't just celebs and people who were just caught up in the wrong place in the wrong time that they went after. They also went after Gordon Brown when he was Prime Minister, which is treason. I mean, that's espionage.
Well,
that is on another level.
Yeah, I don't think it's treason, but you could argue
it is treason.
It's not.
Isn't it?
Not treason, is it? No.
It's fire in the royal dockyards. That's what it is. Or arson. Arson in the royal dockyards.
You can certainly argue espionage. You could argue that.
Yeah. So, do what
Against
we do to spies.
State.
Yeah. It's another level. But I mean, giving those, giving off what teeth, giving Ofcom teeth.
But telling them to use them as well, actually expecting them to use them.
But also, I mean, what about, I think you were talking about this before the election, about giving more money to the National Crime Agency.
Yeah.
And making sure that these crimes are actually investigated.
Yeah, because these are crimes. Exactly. These are crimes. What went wrong, when Keir Starmer was DPP and was actually pursuing these, and he got some convictions, but he didn't really get many. And ultimately, it was because of the lack of evidence. The reason why Piers Morgan, Rebecca Brooks got away with it is not because we think, we can't obviously say they're guilty because, again, no evidence. We can't slander people, but it was down to a lack of evidence. There's a lot of people think, how could we have caught effectively what were a few small sprats and not the editors must have known what was going on and been direct, because it was so widespread.
Yes.
It was so widespread. It's impossible to suggest, but obviously you need a higher standard of proof in a court of law. So the problem was ultimately a lack of evidence. So what we need to do is properly resource investigators so that you don't end up in a situation where something this blatant ends up with a lack of evidence.
Yeah.
Because it is illegal. More people should have gone to prison. There are clearly way more people who were responsible. Like, you can go to prison as an individual just for stalking another individual. Like, the stalker need not be famous and the stalkee need not be famous, and you can still go to prison for it if you've caused, material distress to the victim's life.
Yeah.
So how is it not possible for a person who will have effectively not just followed someone down the street a bit, but actually hacked into their phones and things like this?
Yeah.
And many people have done it on a grand scale. How is it possible for them to still be free?
Yeah. Pete says fines are not enough. A lot of news outlets factor in fines as a cost of doing business, which we've seen with over £1 billion being paid out so far for the hacking scandals across different news groups.
What I would do is I would make, this is why I like the water company policies that Labour have, because you could apply them to so many other situations. You could make presenters, journalists and editors criminally responsible for misinformation going out, for example. So let's say you have a situation where Laura Kunsberg's doing her thing and Nigel Farage goes on, like he did a couple of weeks ago, and he says something which is known to be untrue, factually incorrect. Now, if that program doesn't make sure that the public watching it needs to be edited and done in such a way that the public are under no illusions that what he's just said is a lie. If they allow that misinformation to go out, if they facilitate it in a way, you make them criminally responsible, which can, in the first case, include fines. In the second case, you could actually say this is serious. You take it really seriously and say you can actually be imprisoned. Because that is what they're saying for water companies. They're saying you can face criminal sanctions if you repeatedly break the law. Make it illegal for production companies and, to mislead the public. I'm not saying like every little thing, like a politician may say a thing or produce a fact that's wrong. And you might say, well, they've just come out with it. No one said it before. It hasn't been fact checked before. I'm not going to you don't want to criminalize a presenter or a production team just because something passed them by that was sort of newish, but something that has already been debunked.
Yeah.
Something that, like, if they talk about illegal immigration, you need to say, but it's not actually illegal. There's no such thing as illegal entry into a country if it is for the purpose of claiming asylum. Things like that. There's lots of ways you can improve things immediately by making the individuals, not the corporation, not the organization, the individuals who make those decisions criminally responsible. Yeah. That's what I would do.
It's worth repeating that ad nauseum about the fact that most of the people who are here illegally have overstayed a visa. The people who come here on a small boat and then claim asylum have actually come here legally. Because it's legal to apply for asylum after arriving in a country by unconventional means. Yeah.
And there was a bit of hypocrisy yesterday because Robert Jenrick, now as part of his leadership pitch, is having because now the Home Office just officially calls it irregular migration, not illegal migration. But in actual fact, that's not a new term. It's the term that was used by the Home Office in its official documentation, just not the stuff they used to throw out on Twitter. It was under Robert Jenrick as immigration minister. He's used the term, his department's used the term when he was immigration minister. But it is also a more accurate
immigration. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also a more accurate term because it is irregular. Because the regular way to come into the country, if you don't have a passport of this country, is a visa. Yeah. And obviously they're not coming. So it is irregular because there's a very small number of them, but it's more accurate because it's not illegal if they're claiming asylum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they are overstaying their visa, the entry still wasn't illegal because they entered legally. They just didn't leave on time.
Yeah. Josh in the chat says, wow, what a difference a progressive MP makes. I wrote to my brand new Lib Dem MP, first progressive MP in this region basically ever. I'm assuming the MP got back to you about that. And Ernie says, how about a bar type exam for journalists of a license like security staff have? You can still be a commentator, but to call yourself a journalist will have greater responsibility.
I would have, I've said before, I would have journalist as a protected term. I really would.
That would stop those people just filming stuff on their phones and saying, "I'm a citizen."
No, they can still do it. Like anyone can do it, but just don't get to call yourself a journalist. Don't call it. You can't call it journalism. I mean, like even these days, football coaches need to pass accreditation. They need to get accreditation.
Yeah.
Even at quite a low level. I mean, you've got people. It's quite funny because it's not. I mean, it's it's perfectly sensible. But you'll have these like massive football stars who've won World Cups and everything, and then they want to go into management, so they've got to pass their exams.
Yeah.
Don't matter that they were the greatest player ever, maybe, or like, one of them. They've still got to pass their exams to be a football coach. And I so why don't we have that basic thing for journalism?
I would argue that you should have it as a basic thing if you want to be a candidate for an MP.
No, because democracy is supposed to be, of the people, by the people, for the people. So you've got to let. Yeah, no, if you can't.
If someone is actually functionally illiterate, and they stand,
no, because you can have people. I mean, you can have we had a Home Secretary who was blind.
Yeah.
So
apparently you're not allowed to be in a debate in the House of Commons if you're deaf and or dumb. That's a rule. They've got that rule.
I'm pretty sure that's a rule that would change very quickly if
they just ignore it.
Oh, well, that's even better. Actually, it's not. You should actually just change the rule.
When you stand as an MP, they give you an information pack, and that's one of the things it says. Right. Well, there is this rule, and no one's ever repealed it, but we just ignore it, so that's okay.
Yeah, okay. But, no, you have to include everyone. I'm sorry. A lot of people are thick, and they need representation too. So, you need people. They don't need
representation by someone who's thick.
Yeah,
the worst person to represent them.
Then they have the choice not to vote for them. But I will say everyone.
I mean, it'd be pretty basic. It's not going to be like having to do an A level or something. It's just
but what you'd say is basic would still exclude half the population. That's not democracy.
What,
democracy isn't just about everyone having
works.
Most people don't know how Parliament works. The problem there is not the MPs.
But if you're going to go for a job in Parliament, I think the least you should do is you'd have to do it for any other job.
Yeah, but so do I. But you cannot
just turn up for a job interview and say, "Oh, I want this job. I don't know how to do it. I don't know anything about it, but I want it."
No, you can, but you are free to do that. You are free to do that. It's up to the employer to say, "Well, we don't want you." Everyone is free to do that and should be free to do that. The same applies to Parliament. People are free to say, you don't know anything, but they don't. The problem is that we don't. The problem we have here is that we don't teach people because it's not candidates yes, candidates should know. I've said as much myself. I think it's embarrassing that people get elected to Parliament. People like Nigel Farage, and then he gets to boast how he didn't even know how to vote, the single most important function of an MP. And yet, the problem is we don't teach people.
Yes,
that's the problem. But we should teach everyone.
What's the point? What's the point of teaching everyone that? Most people don't care, and they're never going to have to vote in Parliament. If someone gets a job as an MP, they're going to have to vote in Parliament. The least they could do is learn how Parliament works.
I do, but you cannot force it because then you are excluding people, and it's not democracy then. If it's not universal, it's not real democracy.
I mean, if you want to be a candidate for a political party, you have to go through a test. They'll have. You might have hustings.
It's not much of a test, is it? Have you seen some of the MPs we've ended up with?
I know.
Have you seen some of the candidates every party ends up with?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's
You
perfect.
don't.
I'm saying
You
at
don't
least
really.
there's something to say, this is your job as an MP. I reckon there's people who run for it being an MP who don't even know that they're supposed to meet with their constituents once a week. I mean, Farage obviously doesn't know that, and don't know how Parliament works in this country. I mean, you've got elected
No, but
politicians who don't know the difference between Great Britain and the UK. It's
UK.
like
I know that, but ultimately, that's up to the people, and if the people want to elect an ignoramus, then they should be free to do so. It would be nice if the media did its job and pointed out that this ignoramus is an ignoramus.
that'll just make them more
And
popular.
I mean, I find this bottle cap thing. I've done a video on that for this afternoon. Quite remarkable. You've got, I mean, beyond the Brexit side of it, I'll forget about the Brexit side of it for now. You've got people. Look,
This is
right,
hilarious.
I drink fizzy pots
All
all
right,
the
Phil.
time.
Phil,
It's
can I stop you?
stupid.
Can I stop you
Yeah,
for a moment?
my
I'm just
demonstration.
I've got 3 super chats and then I'll come back to you. Okay. First of all, from Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. That's very kind. Victoria Derbyshire is covering Laura Kunsberg this Sunday. I'm very pleased indeed. It's happened before and it should be a permanent arrangement. I couldn't agree more. I much prefer Victoria Derbyshire over Laura Kunsberg. Admiral Awesome, thank you for the super chat, mate. They have betrayed the disabled already, not doing away with the bedroom tax or cruel sanctions, still making disabled people look dishonest. Well, there haven't been any changes made yet, and I'm hoping that there will be positive changes made. That line about making disabled people look dishonest is something that the right-wing agenda has been doing for a very, very long time, and I absolutely hate it. Especially when people's disabilities aren't necessarily visible. George, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. A dangerous misuse of illegal has been set. I agree with that. And number 3 says, educate everyone well. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Richard. Anyway, go on. Should we talk about bottles?
Oh, bottle,
Tell us about the bottles.
They're going on about it, and it's like so easy. You just look, it's easy. I do it all the time. Actually, this one comes off. I've picked a bottle that doesn't actually have it. Right,
you picked up a bottle that not only doesn't have it, but disappears because of your green screen effect.
I can't help that. Yeah, but that's look. This one does. Look, it's an old fountain bottle. You just take it off, and you do that, and you can like pour it as easily. You can drink it from it. Like what they do is I get it stuck up my nose. It's rotate it, you imbecile.
But these people are imbeciles. They have butlers to open their bottles for them, and then the butler hands them the bottle, and they're like, it's like that's when I started my drinking problem. Pours his drink on his head.
I don't like the fact that they parade there, the fact that they cannot pour. Like there's that idiot that was it a GB News cretin who was going, I spill it every time. It can't just be me. It may just be you admitting to it. It may just be you admitting to it. Because I have never. How do you spill it? What are you doing? Are you actually rotating it so that the cap is like underneath between? Yeah,
Emily
that's
Carver. Hello.
Why are you rotating it so that the cap is between the bottle and the glass? Do you know when they first started coming out? I didn't actually know what they were about. I didn't know it was about a recycling thing. Some of them had a label on eventually, but the first one I got, I didn't realise. I actually thought it was just handy so you didn't do what I do sometimes in my moments of incompetence and drop the bottle cap on the dog hair covered floor. I thought this is brilliant. It gets stuck to the bottle. Amazing. Yeah. It's like win-win. I can think of no downside to it.
Emily Carver wrote, I never used to spill my Diet Coke. That was until these new EU-regulated bottle caps came into power. What? Power? Now I spill it every day. It can't be just me. 2 question marks. So apparently we're now ruled by these new EU-regulated bottles where the bottle tops stay on.
The Brexit side of it. It's like we left the EU. These things came in after we left the EU. I can't remember exactly when they came in. I'm sure they were sort of
it's almost as though the EU becomes like some kind of like worldwide standard for manufacture.
It's what experts try to explain to these cretins for so long is like manufacturers aren't going to set up a second production line. It's expensive. They'll set up a production line for the highest standard for the product they want to sell. And if they want to sell it in the EU, they're going to set it to EU rules because they're the highest standard. And it's really that simple.
Roger's saying requiring qualifications for MPs. I'm not saying that they need A levels or they need a university degree. I'm saying that before you stand as a candidate, you should have to do a quick test, like you do when you do your driving. You're not allowed to drive a freaking car without sitting down and doing a test to prove that you know the rules of the road. Why is it any different?
Because it has to be universal. Like, if you want to give them a test, give them a drugs test. I'm all right with that.
I mean, the driving test is universal. Anyone who wants to drive has to do that test.
In
order to do that test, you must be able to read, and you must be able to read English.
If you don't do your driving, not everyone has a driving license. If you
because people don't drive. Some people are going to stand as MP. They'll never see this.
But that's okay. They don't have their lives wrecked by a driver unless we run them over. Whereas your MPs do. So it's got to be universal. A democracy is not a democracy if you're excluding people from the process.
No, but that's the point. Like, you can ruin someone's life by driving without a license. You can also ruin someone's life by becoming an MP.
But that's it. But being ignorant doesn't mean you get to be an MP.
Big level.
It just means you get to stand. No, everyone's got to be able to stand. You've got to think of a different way.
Yeah, everyone can stand. You just got to do the test first. Anyone can drive a car. You've just got to pass the test.
What if they fail the test?
Then they can try again in 5 years' time.
No, you're excluding them at this point. You've got to allow people to choose.
What about the 500 quid you got to pay to stand? It's £10,000 to stand as mayor of London. How exclusive is that?
You get it back. But you get it back if people vote for you.
If people vote for you.
Yeah,
if you're earning 12 grand a year, you're not going to spend 10 grand of it on running for mayor. It disenfranchises.
Other people will do. If you can get 5%,
hundreds of thousands of people.
If you can get 5% of the electorate to vote for you, you can get people to donate, which is actually how it works. In fact, that's what I can't. You go on about the Tories this week. The far right have basically lost a little battle within their party because the Tory leadership contest is going to go until November.
Was I going on about the Tories this week? What?
No, the Tories were going on about the Tories.
Oh, right. Sorry, I was going on about the Tories. I was like,
no, the far right.
The
far right wanted a shorter leadership contest because their candidate's already ready, and the rest of the party went.
Is that Kemi Badenoch?
Basically, Robert Jenrick, Priti Patel, and Kemi Badenoch. Suella Braverman's gone; she's nowhere. She hasn't even got any nominations yet, and she probably won't get many. You only need 10. I don't think she's going to get 10. I don't think 10 MPs want her. So you've got actually they might put her in just sometimes you do get people backing someone they don't really want just to create the debate. But they may avoid that because it went quite badly the last time Labour did that.
Yeah.
So they've lost. It's going to be a long leadership contest now. So they've sort of lost that one. But I've forgotten where I was going with this. I had a point and I've forgotten it because you interrupted.
I'm sorry.
It might come back to me. Don't worry.
The Tories just turning on each other like
no, I wasn't.
Like a snakes. Alex pointed out that there is a long history of candidate tests that discriminates against people from certain racial, ethnic, and etc. backgrounds. Okay, so we wouldn't do that.
I just don't have anything.
Do written driving tests that you have to do, the theory test. Do they discriminate against people for certain?
Actually, they can because some of them are bollocks. I'll give you an example. So it's obviously changed now. But when I did, because I had to do a written test, because it sort of came in when I was getting ready to do because I did it a few years later than other people, because I used to get car sick even when I was driving. But anyway, so I went along to do the written test, and it was this ridiculous thing. It was just multiple choice. It was really dead simple. And it was like a 45-minute test, and I did it within 5 minutes, went away, pissed off, got 100%. But it took longer for them to explain how to do it. We had to do a practice. And the way the questions were, you had these questions, and then by each one, there was like this, imagine this like square where it's faint pink, but then there's a white cross in it. And we went around and we had to put a cross in this fake box to show we could put a cross in a box where this white cross was, right? Mm. And we're doing this, and the instructor's going around, or the examiner, the invigilator's going around checking everyone, and he stops at this one person and talks to her. And I'm thinking, has she got that wrong? Has she managed to not put a cross in the cross box? And this is the level of some people.
Yeah,
That can be a good reason for not letting them be in charge of a dangerous vehicle on the road. But it's
Or
not a reason to exclude. No, it is
not
not.
a reason to exclude them from running your life.
No, because they don't run your life.
They
But
do.
as Lee Anderson expertly pointed out yesterday, when he's going on about, oh, Labour have changed the rules, we can't be on select committees, and people are pointing out to him, mate, they haven't changed the rules are the same. Select committees get a number of MPs from each party according to the proportion in Parliament of that party. He used to be a member of a party that had over half of the seats, so they got over half of the places in these committees. He's now represents a party that is 0.8% of the seats for an 11-person committee. 0.8% of 11 is not even a full person. Therefore, you don't get a seat on these committees.
Not even a real human being. Not
He's-
even a
he's
real
basically-
boy.
Yeah, he's basically a foot.
There's-
So you get a foot on the select committee, not the mouth. That's too much. You can get a foot. We can chop your foot off and you can put it in any select committee you like. And he can't grasp. Oh, I'm actually going to end up picking on Lee Anderson quite a lot, I think, over the next few days. He's such
he is actually
entertainment.
scum. He is such.
But
such
he's also,
scum.
and I sometimes hate doing this. He's thick. He is proper
He is
thick.
proper
And
thick,
sometimes I hate pointing it out because I'm also conscious of the fact it was sort of true when he was in the Conservative Party, but it's now massively true in Reform UK. Because look at the other Reform UK MPs. They're all basically posh millionaires. Someone else runs their business for them. They don't do it. So they've got lots of time on their hands, all privately educated. And I actually don't like pointing out that Lee Anderson's thick because he came from the ordinary working class background.
Yeah.
But at the
But he's a
same
working
time,
class
he is
Tory.
just
He's
thick.
worse. I mean, he's chumming
he's
up
just
with all the
thick.
posh boys because he thinks that these
Well,
posh
yeah.
bullies are going to look after him. They're not. They're going to use him. They're going to and then discard him like they do with all of their, the
Yeah.
people and the things and the objects that they smash in their wake. Brad W, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Listening to Orange Order Loyalist interview makes me believe we need tests for breeding licenses. Bit much, bit far, bit what? Ivan Ambrose, thank you very much for the super chat. My solution is political education should be part of the curriculum. This would hopefully improve involvement and engagement in politics. My argument against that is some people just don't care. And it would be like forcing me to study ice hockey. I don't think it would be a good use of my time in school if it was a subject I wasn't interested in and a subject that I wasn't particularly good at, and it just made me feel shit about myself that we had to do it. English and maths, I'll give that a slide because you do need those for everyday life, but everything else, fine. Civics classes, they're supposed to do that anyway, aren't they, these days? But making people have to do political education as a separate subject, I don't know if that would work. It might put people off. Because they just go, oh, this is really boring. Hate it. Let's go and watch a Marvel movie. Anyway, Reagan Elite's got some breaking news for us. The UK has dropped its challenge to the International Criminal Court for the arrest warrants on
It's
Israeli
not actually
leaders.
breaking news. It was effectively announced months ago.
Oh, okay.
It's quite funny. I saw it on The Guardian, like this morning on The Guardian. Oh, why the government must drop its opposition, its legal challenge. And then literally a few hours later, the government drops its legal challenge. Like, yeah, do you know, like they announced a few months ago. Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
They keep doing things like this. You know, Labour had already set out its position on the ICC investigation and what they would do if they ever had to exercise a warrant.
But that now it's been officially dropped. I mean, that's saying what they're going to do.
It's still news, but it's just bizarre when you see on The Guardian, literally, oh, why the government should drop this. Then next article, oh, the government's dropped this, like in the same day. It's like,
And we've done. It was The Guardian what won it. Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the super chat. Phil has given an example of discrimination against colourblindness.
No, I haven't. They didn't have to distinguish between two colours. A colourblind person would have still seen the white cross.
Yes. I'm colourblind, so I can say that.
You can see it, you just see it differently. So it's sometimes you
But
get.
if
two
you are
colours mixed up.
colourblind and you can't tell the difference in greens and reds, then
but
driving
they
might
didn't
not
have
be
to.
for you.
They just
Yeah,
had
you
to
do
fill
it
in
at
the box.
a stoplight, Phil.
Oh yeah. So there you have to be aware of the position, not the light. I get that, but you know.
31 plays says, devil's advocate, the simple solution to all this, I'll concede if it's harsh, take all the safety labels off everything for a couple of years and let Darwinism run its course. It's a tremendously right-wing libertarian way of thinking, and it wouldn't work. And the people who will get caught up in it the most would be children, generally, who might
who
not
famously pay attention to instructions on bottles.
Yeah. No, I think that sort of letting Darwinism take its course.
I think it's just a joke. I've heard comedians do that one before.
If we did let Darwinism take its course, then all the rich people would just be in charge of everything. Oh, hang on, they already are. Yeah. Even worse than they are today, because you've got Darwinism, natural selection, and sexual selection, and then you've got social Darwinism, which is ruthless. What's the expression they use? The fittest survive or whatever. Survival of the fittest. Yeah, which isn't quite what Darwin said when he was talking about the animal world and the world of plants. But it's not the world that I want to live in. Donna said we did politics in history, which kind of makes me think they dropped history for the first 3 years in secondary school. We still
history
do
is politics, though, isn't it?
Yeah, we still
Human
do
history is politics.
You only need to do it till you start your GCSEs, and then you can pick something else if you want. Although I've said this a few times on this channel, I couldn't do history and geography, and I'm older. I realised that you can't really understand history unless you understand geography, because a lot of it makes no sense if it's all just unconnected events that happened in the past, and you just kind of remember what the events were, and you don't understand how they all fit together.
When I did history anyway at school, I had to do history and geography, but GCSE history wasn't world history, it was Industrial Revolution. We did a little bit of World War One at the end, a little bit, but GCSE history, I don't imagine it'll change a great deal because it's based on the national curriculum, isn't it? Yeah. It was just the Industrial Revolution, so it was, and you would think, okay, that could also connect trade around the world, but we didn't really even cover that. It was really just it was a brief period, an important period, but a brief period of British history. That was the entirety. And I didn't do very well in GCSE history because I found it boring. I find history interesting. Most of what I know about history I learned, and it was nothing to do with the teacher. I thought my history teacher is really good, but I wasn't interested in what this Punch cartoon meant.
Yeah.
Which is what it was all about. Yeah. That's what the questions were. Oh, what does this Punch cartoon mean? I don't care.
Yeah. Vendetta's pointing out the geography at GCSE is geology. That's quite true, actually, and Oxbow Lakes. But okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the 7 Labour rebels who are now no longer got the Labour whip. What do you
independence.
think? Independence. They're sitting as independents now. Do you think it was a bit harsh, or do you think it's exactly what Starmer should have done?
It's not harsh. I just think strategically I wouldn't have done it. But at the same time, these people, they're not serious people. So they're going on about the 2-child cap. Labour have already said they're getting rid of it, but going to get rid of it when they can present it as a funded plan. They could get rid of it as early as this autumn, potentially. And also they're not being serious because because people will say, oh no, but it's because they care about child poverty. No, because they're not talking about child poverty. Like the 2-child cap, first of all, several of them, not all of them, I hasten to add, but several of them talked about it as being a child benefit cap, which it's not. Child benefit is not capped. It's a universal credit cap, which also means, why aren't they talking about the fact that if you want to reduce child poverty, why are working people in need of benefits to top up their pay? Why aren't they pushing that more? That would be a more sensible line to push. And also, what about all the children in poverty, the vast majority of them who are not affected by the 2-child cap because they're in a household with 1 or 2 children? Do they not care about them? This is all performative. It's because these people prefer being in opposition. When Keir Starmer said, are we the party of protest or the party of power? These are the guys who we want to be the party of protest. Thank you very much, because we get quite a lot of money for that. And we're not getting any extra money by backing our own party in government. We get more money.
Where's this extra money come from?
Being paid as MPs, because most of them are unemployable. Rebecca Long Bailey famously admits herself she's unemployable. Remember what Rebecca Long Bailey did, this great socialist genius, she did before becoming an MP. She helped privatise the NHS. That was her job. And when you point this out, this legally trained person, that was... So legally trained people, what have we got? We've got Keir Starmer, who used his legal training to take on Thatcher and win, sometimes for striking miners for free, took on McDonald's and won, went around the world persuading governments not to kill people. So he's done that with his legal training. What did Rebecca Long Bailey do with her legal training? Helped privatise the NHS. And when you point this out, it says, well, it's the only job I could get. So these are people, not all of them, some of them have maybe got talents. I don't wish to disparage all of them, but some of them at least can't believe their luck that they get to get paid a fortune as an MP for basically talking shit. So I've got no sympathy for them, but strategically.
Okay, hold that thought. Strategically, Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. The way 30p Lee spoke about Andy Burnham in the context of the Manchester airport incident has really boiled my blood. I can't comprehend why people voted him in again. Racism, basically. Anyway, go on. Strategically, let's talk about why this might have been an error on Starmer's part to give him a full 6 months suspension.
I mean, there's two things. First of all, what made me most mad about these rebels is the simple fact of the matter is that the 2-child cap, which a lot of people don't understand what it is, even some of those MPs showed that they don't understand. Stephen Flynn, who put the piss in motion in the first place, I assume. I didn't actually see it, but I've read the debate. Yeah. Stephen Flynn called it a cap on child benefit. It's not. There's no cap on child benefit. Anyway, but a lot of people, it's not just MPs, a lot of people don't understand it, but a lot of people support it. Even Labour members, and we've had up-to-date polling on this, even Labour voters from this month support the cap. So if you go, okay, the correct policy is to remove the cap because it's not going to eliminate, like the Green Party claim it's going to completely eliminate child poverty. Fact check of that's been, full fact have said, don't talk shit, mate. But it is considered by experts, if you were to do one thing to try and tackle child poverty, it's the single best thing you could do for a certain amount of money, right? I accept that. But it's also, the cap is popular. So what do? You get rid of it on the quiet. So why I'm mad at these rebels is they've raised the temperature on it. They've made it newsworthy. But that is also partly the reason why I would have not removed the whip, because that raises the temperature further. That makes it new. Because as it was, the Guardian already had 3 articles ready to go on the rebellion. And then all of a sudden on that day, they had 6 articles. It was like almost every article on the Guardian that day was some variation of the same thing because of the whip being withdrawn. And I get that some people will look at it as, well, they were only trying to help deal with child poverty, these children who are, facing malnutrition right now. This is not a problem for the future. So, I can see how people would think that they were trying to put pressure on Labour to do the right thing, even though they weren't at all. They're just grifters. It's a bit of a joke, like John McDonnell said, pressure will force Labour to remove the cap. It's like, Starmer's already announced he's removing the cap. Liz Kendall's already said so, and it's her department. They've just said they're going to do it when they can present a fully costed budget. And now, because of this pressure on it, there is a danger that it could end up being, what you don't want to do is implement unpopular policies if you can get away with it. And if you're going to do it in a way that's not unpopular. In other words, don't tell people, or we have to announce it, but announce it. It's like Brexit. If you're going to do anything that's divisive and it's dividing your voters, do it in the most boring way possible so no one can really report on it. Well, having a rebellion, which it wasn't even much of a rebellion, was it? It was like 7 people and then 42 or something that abstained? So it's like, it was a pretty pathetic rebellion. But either way, it was still billed as this big rebellion, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a rebellion that makes it newsworthy, and then you have the whips removed, which makes it more newsworthy. So it's like you're drawing attention to it now.
Well, that's something
So
that
I would
someone else
just,
said, that it might take longer now for the
yeah,
removal
it
of
could
the
take
child
longer.
cap as a result
That
of
is
the
exactly
actions
my
of these
fear.
MPs.
That is exactly my fear. I hope not, because obviously Rachel Reeves has been doing her thing with the old 20 or 19 billion, I think she might have said, budget hole, which the Tories are crying about, which is actually quite funny because to cry about it, they've got to admit that they put it there. But, you know, she's clearly gearing up. We said so. We said they would do this. I've been saying this long before the election. Labour will get in and then claim they've discovered a load of extra skeletons in the closet, and people will go, "Oh bollocks! You knew how bad it was." But they'll say it anyway, and they are saying it anyway as an excuse to then do things that they didn't want to talk about during the election campaign, which is deal with public spending, the budget hole. Because what the Tories did is, in order for them to, because what they're doing now is they're moaning at Rachel Reeves for saying, "Oh, you knew about this budget hole." So I'd like to actually sit one of these Tories down and say, what budget hole would this be then? Would this be the budget hole your government created and then made worse with tax cuts, which means tax revenues go down? That makes the budget hole bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So in order to attack Labour now, because it is, like people are saying, Rachel Reeves, oh, she's pulling a fast one, she's shenanigans. She knew how bad the situation was. Yeah, she did. Absolutely, she did.
Yeah.
So she is playing fast and loose with the truth here by saying, "Oh, I've just discovered how bad things really are." Absolutely. But the Tories enabled it.
But surely there's some access that the opposition wouldn't have to those figures.
Oh, yeah. Well, not in terms of the size of the figures. Yeah, the size of the budget hole is not a surprise. She can go in and, having looked at the books, see more of the detail about where the specific problems are. Absolutely. But we knew the size of the budget hole. We knew. There's no surprise here. In fact, actually, if it is 19 billion, that's a bit less than some people thought. They thought it might be up to 25 billion. We sort of thought it'd be between 20 to 25 billion. And it's caused by, the budget hole specifically is things like public sector pay needs addressing. There's schools, hospitals, various other public buildings have been falling down. There's not been any rebuilding of them. Councils are basically going to the wall. It's things like this, as well, of course, as, dealing with things like, root causes of poverty, like, which is basically people not having enough. Yeah. And a part of that, and this is what gets me about these people who go, "Oh, we just try to tackle child poverty." No, you're not, because you're not talking about child poverty. If you were going to talk about child poverty, you would be talking about the households that most households have one or two kids. I mean, the majority of kids in poverty are not part of a household with more than two kids. So the 2-child cap is irrelevant for them. And also, the vast majority of households with children in poverty are working households. Why do they need universal credit? If they're real socialists, that's what they should be furious about. That's what they should be pushing Labour on from the inside. From the inside, they should be pressing Labour on. Why is it that working families even need universal credit?
Yeah.
You want to tackle poverty, that's what you need to tackle, not this performative bollocks.
Make companies pay the workers a living wage. Brad W, thank you very much for the super chat. "I'm fed up of lying politicians. Politician tells the truth. How dare you tell me that fact I can't handle? Sometimes you can't win." Yeah, indeed. It's not easy being an MP. We should have a little test to make sure that people are happy with what they're going to have to go through before going in for it. To help them go in eyes open, I feel. And also we've had the question from Michael about your health. How are you getting on?
It's fine. The external wound has basically, it has healed. You can hardly see it. Internally, it's still a bit sore, but it's getting better.
Yeah, you had a bandage on the side of your head before. It was cool.
I did. I was actually just thinking recently. It's just the timing could have been really awful. Could you imagine if I'd have had a surgery at the same time? They'd think I was an anti-Trump because it was on my left side.
Yeah.
So people would think I'm making a political statement. And I thought, thank Christ, I missed that one. Now I dodged that bullet. Because I was thinking earlier, the timing could have actually been really awkward for me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're feeling better. Ernie Burns says the problem is that it incentivizes the lack of investment in education to disenfranchise those who haven't got the privilege of a good school and private tutors, which is a response to Gary Arnold's comment earlier on. Yeah, I mean, there's lots to be done. I mean, it is a question like where do we start? And Labour have obviously picked 39 policy issues that they hope to be able to get laws put through in the next Parliament. Are they going to cut short the recess, or is that just...
It's already been cut short. We should already be on recess. It already has. Okay. So they're going into recess after next week. So there'll basically be a 4-week recess where there used to be 6.
Okay.
So it has already been cut short.
Next week there'll be a PMQs and then it'll end.
I think so. I don't know when. Let's have a look when they're going to recess next week. But they're in next week for a bit of it at least.
Yeah.
Where view full parliamentary calendar. So according to this, oh no, there won't be a PMQs. They finish on the 30th on Tuesday.
Okay.
So yeah, we had one PMQs.
One PMQs.
Which was,
which was fine. It was. I thought that it was very civil.
Oh, it was very civil. Yeah, it was. Well, it was. It was full stop. Now, I think it will carry on being civil while some extent. The thing is like there's no point in him doing otherwise.
Stay now.
Yeah, but he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't behave like this if he was. It's because there's no point. He's not going to like his. The way he behaved before is because he was trying to be in campaign mode. He was just very bad at it. He's not going to lead them into any more campaigns, not even the local elections. There are no more campaigns for him to lead.
Now he's just doing his job.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's fair thing to say. I mean, he made a point in this PMQs of saying he was going to raise issues on which even Labour supported them in government, which is security and Ukraine.
Yes.
Obviously, he doesn't have to do that forevermore. There are areas where he can actually try and, show a difference. He can have a moan about VAT on private schools. He can have a pop on net zero approach.
Wind farms.
Yeah, things
spoiling
like that.
The view.
He could, so there are things he can actually say, "Oh, we disagree with you," but he doesn't have to do it that much because he'll come back in September. Then he's got a few weeks. Then it's conference season again, and then it's a few more weeks. They pick the leader on November the 2nd. So they're
going in. They're going into the conference with the old leader.
But that's the point. That is the point.
It's crazy.
It's not though. It makes sense. Like I said, at the moment, if you had the leadership contest now, you're going to end up with either Badenoch, Jenrick, or Patel. It's quite clear a lot of the other Tories want someone like Tugendhat instead.
That's like selecting the method you want to be put to death.
Yeah. But so what they want is they want the other candidates to raise their profile and make their pitch directly to members at the conference. That's the whole point. That's why the far right didn't want this contest dragging on. Anyway, so they announce it. Yeah.
I've been asked a question in the chat from Nick Reeton. Would Graham abandon his hat if Trump wore the same style? I wouldn't just abandon it. I'll take it out of the back garden and pour petrol on it and set it on fire and dance around it, do a jig. Yes, it would go. But I don't think he's going to wear my style hat. It's an Australian hat, and it wouldn't make America great again. And
he likes wearing Chinese hats. Yeah. His hats are made in China.
Yeah, this is made in Australia, so it's a bit upmarket for him. But yeah, just to have you said what you wanted to say about the leadership?
Yeah, I was just going to say the first proper PMQs really, from that point of view, will be Wednesday, the 6th of November, because that's when the new Tory leader will be in place.
That's the day after the American election, which is about to talk about, because you've lost your bet, haven't you?
I'm quite happy to have lost my bet. I'm quite happy to have lost it. I still win a load if Harris wins.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, there's still good odds on Harris wins. Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Just switch me back.
Well, after she was put forward or before?
No, I put the bet on this week, so we don't technically know it's her, but I mean, we know it's her realistically. It's quite funny because Trump's backing down, isn't he, from the debate? He's trying to say, we're not going to arrange the debates because she's not actually the nominee. Well, neither was Biden officially. You still had a debate with him, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, don't worry.
Someone's pointing out a bit of hypocrisy as well. Like the Wall Street Journal produced a thing a couple of weeks ago, which was talking about, Harris is the sort of the Democrats need Harris, and now the same Wall Street Journal, the same author even, is saying Harris is not the change the Democrats need. Almost like what they were just trying to do was undermine the Democrats.
Yes, almost. But no, I'm glad Biden stepped down. I breathed a sigh of relief. I was convinced that Trump was going to walk this election, and now at least I think that the Democrats have got a fighting
They've
chance.
got a better chance,
and
definitely.
that is also the fact that she hit the ground running. They had a huge amount of donations come in. She's got the backing that she needs to win at the conference, so they're not going to be arguing amongst themselves at DNC next month, which would have been the worst possible thing. So, and today she's got the backing of President Obama and Michelle, his wife. It's gone as well as it could possibly go.
And the thing is as well,
the wheels might come off next week, but this week.
I mean, at the time when Biden announced it, I did a video and I basically said, look, I'm not going to be suspicious here, but the timing looked interesting because it was straight after the Republican convention. Trump had made his pick as running mate and he picked a double crazy ticket and he's now picked someone who's been accused of raping a couch, basically. And it's like Trump's thinking, oh, shit. Can I get rid of him and get a different running mate? Because he picked Vance, presumably because he was totally focused on what he wanted his vice president to do, not what he wants his running mates to do. Because the job of vice president is not really much to it. It's you mostly pick someone who can cover a blind spot with the electorate for your campaign. Yes. And Trump has now not done that. So it's and the Democrats have still got time to, because that's the decision. That's the real area of speculation now. Who will be Harris's running mate? Because that's interesting. And it will also tell us, if they do it sensibly, where they think her blind spot is with those key swing voters in those sort of swing
she's got
states.
a lot of options. She's got a lot of options. She's got Michigan in there. She's got Georgia. She's got Arizona, Pennsylvania. So basically, all these governors and senators from these 6 swing states, she can take a pick, really, which is good.
Well, the Democrats really need to get together on this one and be data driven on it. They really need to get it pinned down. Who would be the best one? But just the fact that Trump now is, the fact that he's, I'm not going to settle this debate. It's not a good look. It looks like he's running scared.
Yeah.
So that's all to the good.
Well, Brad in the chat, thank you very much for the super chat, Brad, says, Phil, bet on Trump, then he'll definitely lose.
I don't lose all my bets. I'm just going to point out I've lost the last 2. I do generally win. Like, even when I don't do it anymore because I don't watch it anymore, but when I used to bet on World Cups, I used to put 100 quid into the kitty for like World Cups. And I always used to come out of it with more money than I put in. I always used to like gain. I'm not recommending betting. I keep pointing that out every time I talk about betting. Don't bet.
I don't bet. I only bet if I know that I can win because of.
Well, that's what I generally do.
I've got my thumb on the scales.
But I generally am quite successful, and it never encourages me to bet, silly money. But I am generally quite successful because I don't bet on just for the sake of it.
The problem is the enjoyment of betting is quite a toxic sort of thing because obviously it gives you a little bit of a kick. When it's your own money and your own family's money, it can lead to obviously gambling addiction, and that's a nightmare. But an arguably worse form of gambling is what the people do on the money markets, which is they gamble with other people's money. And that's what caused the credit crunch, was banks gambling with other people's money.
That happens anyway. It's the fact that they don't suffer the consequences. Yes. It's the classic, privatize the profits, nationalize the losses.
It's a lot easier to gamble with other people's money and not care about losing. Johnny Copperhead,
you don't do something like Nick Leeson, then you're all right.
Yeah, Johnny Copperhead, thank you very much. Trump chose Vance because Putin told him to. Putin, master strategist. Still fighting
Yeah.
his 1,000-day war.
His-
His 3-day war, sorry, 1,000 day.
Walking backwards, yes. He's advancing on Kiev, walking backwards.
Yeah. And Johan saying also JD Vance is managing to anger just about everyone, including his own side. Well, he did call Trump America's Hitler, didn't he?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
there's
that's the
that.
thing. It's actually, to be fair, I will be fair to the orange one. It's actually quite hard to find a running mate that hasn't at some point called him a dickhead. So I'm not sure there's too many
Almost
people.
like he's a dickhead.
Yeah.
Duke Vengeance is saying he did what regarding the sexual abuse of a couch.
Look it off. It's quite funny.
This is. I mean, just when you think things can't possibly get any more crazy for the crazy party. Did you see today? I think it was last night. Was it? There was a rally somewhere, and everyone parked in a Dunkin' Donuts car park, and they came back, and all the cars have been towed,
No.
which they've been threatened about. So there's all this footage of these sad Trump fans in their Trump t-shirts sitting on the sidewalk, just not knowing what to do because their car had been towed while they were listening to some lies. Emma, thank you very much for the super chat. MAGA have really turned on Vance as he has an Indian wife and mixed-race children with Indian names, citing the white replacement theory.
See, that was something I said at the straight thing as well. It's like, how does it look to MAGA that their presidential candidate and running mate both have immigrant wives?
Yeah.
And Trump cheated on his non-immigrant wife for the immigrant who is now his wife.
Yes.
And
then he cheated on her with a porn star.
Yeah, well,
while she was pregnant. Emma, I also want to say we're back. Emma and I, we diverged over whether Trump could win this, and I was like, absolutely, he's going to win it with against Biden, which we disagreed on. And then Emma came around to my point of view a little bit, and now I've come over to Emma's point of view because I think with Harris in the hot seat, then I think there's a very, very good chance that they could actually squeak a win out of this. But don't forget, it comes down to a handful of votes.
Yeah.
Out of
I mean, I don't know.
330
I
million.
actually do not know whether it gives the Democrats the upper hand. What I do know is it gives them a better chance. Because even just like there's so many ways in which it was going wrong here, whether rightly or wrongly, and I think wrongly. Like you literally had the Democrats split on even supporting their own candidate. Now that's not the case.
Mm.
There's enthusiastic, united support for their candidate.
Yeah.
So just that alone. And now if you're also having some of the MAGA crowd turning on each other, all to the better. To the better.
Yeah.
Now Trump, of course, will be ruthless. He will drop Vance if Vance is considered to be a liability now. But that is also going to look a bit, it's going to look chaotic. So it's time for his side to start looking chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Johan in the chat saying that the Heritage Foundation is suspected to have pushed Vance for running mate because he's against abortion, he's against IVF treatment.
He's against whatever you want him to be against if it'll make him richer, is what he's against.
Yeah. Perry's pointing out that Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't ever said anything negative about Trump. She's like the Bojo's version of
she is
Nadine Dorries.
Yeah. She is a bit of a cross between Liz Truss and Nadine Dorries, but madder than either of them.
She's and she wasn't on the ticket for that reason. I mean, they're like, that's a bit too crazy for us.
She's mental.
It's like that Nazi in World War II who was in China at the time of the Japanese invasion, and he actually protected Japanese citizens. Protected Chinese citizens against the Japanese. And you're like, how bad did it have to be for a Nazi to go, whoa, this is a bit much. So that's how mad Marjorie Taylor Greene is. She's absolutely bonkers. And 31 Blaze says, can he drop Vance?
Yeah.
He can drop him.
Can do what he likes, can't he?
So he could drop him.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm aware, don't quote me on this, but I don't think any official paperwork is. I mean, the Democrats haven't filled in their paperwork for the election. So why wouldn't, there's presumably some deadline when you have to have it set in terms of law. And obviously we don't even know who the running mate's going to be for the Democrats. So until the paperwork has to be submitted, they can do what they like, can't they?
But
they'll have to print a load more billboards.
They've had their Congress though, haven't they? And they nominated those because he brought out his running mate and then said, "This is who I'm going to be running with,"
I suppose
and then
that's
they
the point.
voted for Trump. So there'll be some legal issues, at
okay.
least within the Republican
Unless
Party.
they get him to just step down in return for some shiny things later on.
Yeah.
You know, like they did with Gavin Williamson, Boris Johnson. Oh, drop out, will you, go, old chap, and I'll give you a knighthood.
God. Johan saying maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to become Trump's fourth wife. I don't. I think he hates her. He hates most people, but like I think he's just.
I think he hates. I think he hates everyone. He's just all about himself.
Yeah, a lot of politicians are. Anyway, right, we've got to wrap up in a moment. I'm going to go to the doctors again to try and get rid of this bloody cough. Thanks very much for watching. Is there anything else that we were going to cover tonight?
Oh, there were probably loads, but
it's been a week.
Yeah.
I think someone was saying in the chat, "Oh, I thought after the election this will all go really boring," but it's like
I'll tell you what I've noticed for me when I'm doing my scripts. Like normally, I have this massive list of things I could talk about, and then the day before I try and work out which ones would be the best to talk about. Now, what I would say is, I don't have a massive list. So there is way less in terms of like the stuff, but every day there is stuff that comes out. Like there's a video I've got planned and it's been written for days and I was going to do it on Tuesday and I still haven't done it. And I'll be doing it for tomorrow now, unless something else happens, because it's like, there isn't this long list of things to talk about, but there is still things happening every day.
Yeah. Oh, well, may you live in interesting times, which is a curse. Before we go, I just want to say hello to Viv, who's just saying, I like that Emily Maitlis is managing to trigger Marjorie Taylor Greene, Farage and Carrie Lake. Yes. If you haven't seen her interviews with that lot at the conference last week, it was quite something. She's absolutely brilliant. And Billy's saying Musk seems rather irritated at the moment.
Yeah,
he thought he could buy Trump for $45 million a month, but he can't. So that's gone. And I think one Blaze says, "Good luck at the docs. Hope they figure out what's causing the cough." Well, do you know what I thought when I went last week? He did the stethoscope to make sure my tubes were all clear, but he didn't actually look in my mouth. He didn't actually, put a lollipop stick in my mouth and make me go So maybe today he'll actually have a look.
I thought you said it was a chest infection.
Yeah, looks like it. Anyway, my antibiotics, I've got to take my last antibiotic pill now and then, off to the docs. So thanks very much for joining us. I'll be back at 9:00 tonight for the Politics Social. Phil, are you about? Or you got better things to do?
Probably not, but I don't know yet.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see. It's always fun. We never know who's going to turn up to the Politics Social. So I don't usually tell people in advance because it's literally 5 minutes to 9. People just log on or don't. But yes, I'll be there. That's for sure. Okay, so until then, thank you very much, Phil, for talking to us. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to all the super chats and everything. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.